What causes a desert? Next slide. So the desert is defined by less than 10 inches a year of rainfall. There's three different origins for desert. The 30-degree latitude deserts, the rain shadow desert, and the coastal deserts alongside a cold ocean current. Anybody have an idea of which one we're in? Yeah, it's actually rain shadow, but it's also close to the, we're at 36 degrees latitude, so we're close. It's probably a combination, but rain shadow is the most important. Next slide. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is the deserts of the world, and we're in the Mojave over there. And notice that the latitude is around 30 degrees north, 30 degrees south. You have the Atacama and the Mead, and then the Great Sandy in Australia. These are both 30 degrees north latitude, 30 degrees south latitude. Next slide, please. So here's the story. So at the equator, hot air rises, and when hot air can hold a lot of moisture, but when it cools, it can't hold the moisture anymore, so it drops it as rain. So you have a lot of rain along the equator, right? Picture the equator, the jungle, you know, all the rain. And then it rises, and then it comes down again at 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south, really dry, like a blow dryer. So that's why you have 30 degrees north and south latitudes. That's why you have deserts. Next one. And this is the rain shadow desert. This is the Sierra Nevada. We get the weather from the west, and the water holding moisture rises over the Sierra. Again, as it rises and cools, cool air can't hold the moisture. It drops mostly on the west side of the Sierras. By the time it gets over in the Great Basin, where we are, it's dry. So this is a rain shadow. Next one. So we're in a combination of the rain shadow desert and the 30-degree desert. By the way, when I was in London, I was looking through an atlas. Like Alan, I love books, you know, and I was looking through an atlas there, and they have this area here called Great American Desert, but we don't call it that. But in the British atlas, that's what they call it. Next slide. Okay, so here are the American deserts. We're in the Mojave. There's also the Sonoran in Arizona, the Chihuahuan, and Colorado Plateau. Some maps have these together as just the Great Basin Desert. Next one. So a little bit about introductory geology. Next one. So you know the difference, you know, between Great Basin and range, you know the difference? Great Basin and Basin, you'll hear these terms, and it's important to understand the difference. Basin and range is it's a geological term. It means, you know, the Spring Mountains, and then a basin, the Las Vegas Valley, and then the river mountains, you know, and then if you go in the other direction, the Pahrump Valley, that's a basin, and the Nopar Range on the other side is the Death Valley. So basin and range, that's geology. Next slide. And then, so this is the geological province, and we're in the basin and range province. Next slide. And this whole area here, and again, it's nothing to do with drainage, it's just geology, basin and range. It has to do with faulting and all that. We can't get into that now, structural geology. Next one. Now, internal drainage. This is the Great Basin. It's called the Great Basin because there's no rivers leaving the basin. Okay, back in the early part of the 19th century, they thought there was a river that went from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the Pacific. It was called the Rio Buenaventura. And one of the things that John Fremont was supposed to look into was to find the Rio Buenaventura. And he did a circumnavigation in 1840. He came right through here, right through Cottonwood Springs, over there, Blue Diamond. He went on the old Spanish Trail. And this was 1844. And he determined that there was no Rio Buenaventura, that all the drainage is internal. The playa lakes, there's no rivers leaving it. So he goes back to Washington after, and he reports to President Polk. He said, there is no Rio Buenaventura. And guess what the president said? I don't believe you.
Yeah.
He didn't believe him. He said, look, it's right here on the map. He says, I did a circumnavigation. It doesn't exist. Finally, they believed him and they changed the maps. Next slide. So this is a map of the Great Basin. You know, is Las Vegas in the Great Basin? The answer is no. That's right. Because why? Because we have Las Vegas Wash. Las Vegas Wash goes out into the Colorado River, which goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. So there's external drainage. But what about Pahrump? Pahrump? Yeah, it's part of the Great Basin. Excellent. So the three types of rocks, just to review, you had this in college if you took geology. You know, igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. We have all kinds of sedimentary rocks here. Whether or not we have volcanics is, you know, we can't find them. The guy reported them, I told you, but we can't find any volcanics. So maybe we'll make a search. We'll make that our raison d'etre. In the fall, I will do an expedition and try to find the dinosaur footprint and the volcanics. That would be great. Okay, next one. If we get permission from Josh to go off trail. And this is pre-Cambrian. The Cambrian begins around 550 million. We're going to be talking about Cambrian rocks because there's Cambrian rocks sitting on top of the cliff over there. And then during the Paleozoic era, between 550 and 250 million years, Nevada was under the sea. And then finally, Nevada emerged out of the sea during the Triassic. The Great Dying, the greatest mass extinction in geological history occurred at the end of the Paleozoic. And then, in the Triassic, the first mammals and the first dinosaurs evolved during the Triassic around between 250 and 200 million years ago. And then dinosaurs ruled the world for over 150 million years, and then they became extinct at the end of the Cretaceous. So, and then man evolved around 3 million years ago. So this is a map, so this is all Red Rock Canyon, geologically and geographically, as you know. And here's Spring Mountain Ranch, and this is Bonnie Springs, which is now called the Reserve at Red Rock Canyon. Okay, so this is in the book, and so we're going to be talking about the Cambrian, the Bonanza King Formation, then the rest of the Paleozoic rocks were they're mostly carbonates, limestones, and dolomites. And then in the Permian, the Kaibab was the last formation deposited during the Paleozoic, and that's when the Great Dying occurred. And then you have the Triassic, and we're going to talk about, especially here, the formations we're going to talk about that are here. The upper red member of the Moenkopi makes this big valley all the way out to the 159. And then the Shinnerum conglomerate, everybody's favorite rock. It's just a beautiful texture and color. And then the Petrified Wood, and it also has sandstone in it. It has conglomerate and sandstone, and it has petrified wood in it. And then the Petrified Forest member, which is the best exposure in the whole valley, is right here. And we're going to take a look at it. And then we're going to talk about the Kyanta and Moanavi and the Aztec sandstone, which is the big cliffs where we found dinosaur footprints. That's Jurassic. Okay, next slide. So this is a view from Blue Diamond. That's Rick Whitaker and John Peck, looking northwest. The main formation across from the 159 all the way to the edge of the cliff, which is right here, we're going to walk up it over there, is the upper red member of the Moenkopi, which is over here, the upper red member of the Moenkopi. And then then there's the Chinle Formation, the Jurassic, Kyanta and Moanavi, the Aztec sandstone, and sitting on top of it usually you have older rock below younger rock in geology, right? Here we have older rock pushed up on top of younger rock. It's right up there. It's the Cambrian Bonanza King Formation. It's a thrust fault. We'll talk about it briefly. Okay, here's a cross-section right through Spring Mountain Ranch. It's in the book. And we won't talk about the stuff that's over here on this side, across, because it's in the book and it's not relevant to our discussion of the geology of Spring Mountain Ranch. We're in the upper red member, the Shinnerup conglomerate, which also has a sandstone component with petrified wood, then the petrified forest member, Kyanta and Moanavi, and the Jurassic sandstone, and again on top, the limestone, which is young, which is older, pushed up on top. So that's a cross-section. So there it is. This is a view in here. So if you go out and take a look, you'll see this, the Cambrian Bonanza King formations, Paleozoic, limestone, and dolomite. Okay. And this shows how the Bonanza King, how the Cambrian got on top through a thrust fault. We'll discuss it a little bit later. Here's the sandstone. Okay, so this is a paleogeographic map, Mid-Permian time. And Mid-Permian time is the end of the Paleozoic. The Nevada is down here. You can see the border. Let's see, here's Arizona, here's Nevada. It was right at the edge of the sea. And so we still had marine fossils. Excellent. And this shows you some of the fossils that you find in the Kaibab across the road, Fossil Ridge. There's sponges, brachiopods, crinoids, that type of thing. And then those fossils that you look at in the Kaibab Formation in the Permian, they are the innocent remains of a world that would soon be destroyed. The great dying occurred at the end of the Permian around 250 million years ago. And the origin, it was flood basalts in Siberia, put out so much carbon dioxide and other gases that the Earth warmed up 5 degrees centigrade. And that was enough to cause the release of methane deposits on the continental shelves, so that the total increase in temperature was 15 degrees centigrade, which was about 27 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was enough to kill 90% of life on the planet. It's called the day the Earth almost died. The greatest mass extinction in Earth history. So in the early Triassic, you know, the sea came in very briefly for the virgin limestone, but then after that it's all continental land deposits in southern Nevada. So what the formations are in the lower Triassic bone copy, Timpoic conglomerate, the lower red, the virgin limestone, that was an incursion of the sea again, and then the upper red member. Beneath the property here, all the way out to 159 is the upper red member. Again, so here's the cross-section again, so the upper red member, and then you have those other formations that we're going to take a look at. Okay, so the upper red member, again, makes this flat area to the east. So there's an exposure up here. It's not exposed very much because it's a very weak rock. Being such a weak rock, it's eroded away. But there is an exposure in Oak Creek, and that's John Peck, geologist, and you can see how weak the rock is. Really weak red rock. Excellent. And we're going to go up the ridge here, for those who want to join me for a little walk, a little hike. You'll see the red beds as we go up, and then we'll right below the Shinnerup conglomerate. Excellent. So in late Triassic time, look at the paleogeographic map. Lakes and swamps and all those red beds that we see, that we're talking about, the upper red member. This was the environment of deposition. You know, lakes and swamps. It's like I'm thinking Minnesota or something like that. Next slide. And this is what Las Vegas, this is what, if you walked out of here during Triassic time, this is what you would see. Lakes and swamps and these kinds of creatures living here. And then what happened was there was a mountain to the southeast that was uplifted, and then the big apron of alluvium, was deposited, and the mountain range was eroded away. But we have the Shinnerock conglomerate deposited all over the southwest, and above it is the Petrified Forest member. So these are the two members of the Chinle Formation, and we're going to see them in the field. So we're over here now. So the Shinnerock conglomerate has the conglomerate and then sandstone, and then the Petrified Forest member where the vertebra was found, and then the Kyanta and Moanavi, and above that is the Jurassic Aztec sandstone. But the Shinnerock conglomerate has a ridge line all the way from Potato Knoll near Oak Creek in the National Conservation Area. It goes all the way to almost to the 160. And we have, but a really nice exposure is right here. Right here. We're going to walk up to see it. It's right here. Okay. And this is it. This is the Shinnerock conglomerate. It's a beautiful rock. Conglomerate is pebbles cemented together, and it has jasper. Jasper is a semi-precious stone. A lot of red jasper clasts or pebbles. There is petrified wood in the sandstone here. But the best place to see it is at Potato Knoll. On the east side of Potato Knoll, there's a big log. That's Harold Larson. This was taken in 2011. So. And the petrified stump, which is right out here, you know the stump out there by the fence? Yeah, I don't know where they got it. You know, I don't think it's in situ. I don't think it's in place. But somebody dug out the stump. So again, remember the picture of all the swamps and all that? It was quite humid and wet during the Triassic, but things changed. Next one. So, okay, so the Shinnerock conglomerate, Petrified Forest member. Let's take a look at a little closer. So there it is. This is the Petrified Forest member. This purple color, you'll see, I recognize this purple color in Arizona and Utah. I recognize it has distinctive purple color, which typifies the Petrified Forest member. Arrow found something that he thought was a fossil. Next one. And there it is. And and I didn't think it was, and neither did John Peck. He said, "Oh, Harold, what do you know? You're an engineer. You're not a geologist. That's not a fossil." But he started telling me it's a fossil. So he brought Professor Bondi in. He's a paleontologist. He brought him down. Next slide. And Bondi came and looked at it, and he agreed. Harold was right. And then they had a whole bunch of students, and they all came down and scoured the outcrop, and they found some more. No skull. That would be great to find the skull. But they found some more vertebrae. And right now, if you go to the Natural History Museum, there's the one I showed you the picture of, is in there, and there's a little informational sign about it, and so on. Next slide. So what is a metaposaur? This is a metaposaur. It's like sort of like a crocodile, and it lived on the bottom of the Triassic swamps and lakes, especially the lakes. And then we see something, going above it. His eyes were in the top of its head. Go up and grab it. Next slide. So here's Metaposaurus, Petrified Forest member of the Chinle Formation. Large, flat-headed amphibians, voracious predators feeding on fish, sharp conical teeth, upward directed eyes. They became extinct at the end of the Triassic period. So above that, the next formation is the Kyanta and Moanavi. Again, red beds, It's a slope former. In the Johnson Farm, anybody been to the Johnson Farm Dinosaur Discovery Center? It's really great up in St. George, Utah. You got to go there sometime. It's a great destination. It's about a 2-hour drive, I think. And they have a trackway. We used to be able to take your shoes off and walk in your socks and walk with the dinosaurs. But they won't let you do that anymore, but you can still see it. Next one. So this is this is the place here, the Dinosaur Discovery. The thing is, this formation, the Moanavi Formation, up in Utah, is a prolific dinosaur horizon. Bones, tracks, all kinds of things. Big time. But here we haven't found anything yet. And next one. Okay. So there it is. You know, this is the Kyanta and Moanavi. It goes up to here, and then above it, you get into the Aztec sandstone. The Spring Mountain Range. So this is what we'll see when we get up on top. You have the Chinle Formation right above the conglomerate, the Petrified Forest member, then the Moanavi, Kyanta, and then the Aztec sandstone. The best exposure in the whole valley, right here. So this is the world 190 million years ago. Just before this, all the continents were together in a supercontinent called Pangaea. And they started breaking up again. They started breaking up about 190 million years ago. This is the incipient Atlantic Ocean. This is South America, this is Africa, this is Europe. There are formations in South America that are exactly the same as the ones in Africa, and there are formations in North America that are exactly the same as the ones in Scotland and in Northern Europe, including fossils. So this is what in the early Jurassic, you know, around 190 million years ago, this is what the area looked like. We had it change. Remember, it was really, really wet, you know, with swamps and lakes, and then the climate changed, and we had a desert here called an erg, comparable to the Sahara Desert of today. And it went from California all the way through Nevada, Utah, into the Rocky Mountain states. Sand. So if you walked out of here, we opened the door and walked out, this is what we would see. Sand dunes. It's all sand dunes. And there were believe it or not, there were dinosaurs in the sand dunes. You know, and they weren't big like in the Cretaceous, you know, like Tyrannosaurus rex. They were small dinosaurs about this big. And so this is it. This is the Jurassic Aztec sandstone. This is the Wilson Cliffs at Spring Mountain Ranch, where we're at. And this is a view which shows the cross-bedding. And here's layers going this way, layers going that way, layers going this way. As the winds shifted during Jurassic time, the sand was deposited. Later, water seeping through the sand cements it from a sand to a sandstone. And this is just a couple of things about, you know, desert varnish. Desert varnish is iron and manganese oxides, which are deposited on top of the sandstone. And as you know, the Native Americans would carve petroglyphs into that. The oldest petroglyphs are so old, thousands of years old, that the carvings themselves have desert varnish in them, so they're almost invisible. And also you'll see ripples. You'll see both, you know, desert varnish and ripples, you know, because remember, sand dunes were blown by the wind. And so you see ripples, and then it gets cemented. Next one. So dinosaur tracks in the Jurassic Aztec sandstone. Okay, so this is a summary of the story. Why don't you read this, and then I'll talk about it. But at the time, there was no geologist working. This was before I got hired. There was no geologist working at Red Rock Canyon at the National Conservation Area. So it wasn't until August 2011 that they took me up there to see it. And unfortunately, it was August, and and we should have started earlier in the morning because we almost didn't come home. And I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you about that. Anyway, I went up and I confirmed, oh yeah, these sure look like dinosaur footprints. And then I brought in Steve Rowland, Professor Rowland from UNLV, and he identified the tracks as Growlator. Growlator is not the name of the dinosaur, it's the name of the track. And you can't identify the dinosaur unless you have bones. But it was probably a Coelophysis or a Megaplosaurus. And then later on, in that same year, Cindy Kalsick found the best dinosaur trackway for, I want to say anything, I don't know about Utah, but this is really great. I'll show you a picture of it. Not only does it have dinosaur footprints, but it has early mammal tracks right alongside it. And guess what? The mammal tracks stop and the dinosaur footprints keep going. That's where the dinosaur got his lunch. I'll show you.
Yeah.
And then and then over time, a few more people started finding dinosaur footprints. And now there are 6 places. And maybe the one I'm going to show you here, maybe number 7. Okay, so this is the footprints. This is the original track site by Smith, Nicholson, and Mishlow. You see the tracks? You see them here? And he took a bunch of pictures. A lot of them were smudgy because the dinosaur, walked on it, stepped on it. But these were really good ones. Tridactyl, 3-toed dinosaur footprint, like a bird. Birds, by the way, are the only living dinosaurs. They're not related. They were dinosaurs. They're the only living dinosaurs. And other examples, you ever see an ostrich or an emu or a roadrunner?
Mm-hmm.
They're little dinosaurs. That's what they are.
Like,
So this, those are dinosaur tracks. On the way to find that, I found my baby. Next slide. And there I am in 2011, and there's my baby right there. That's the dinosaur footprint. You can see the bulge. Can you see the bulge? And, the soil was, the sand was wet, and the dinosaur stepped in it, and it bulged out. You can go to a beach with the right moisture content, you can create the same conditions. You can make it bulge out. The right conditions if you experiment. And next slide. So this is another picture of my baby, what I found. And that inspired me to write this children's book about a dinosaur that comes to life in Red Rock Canyon. And so, pretty big, this is the first time that dinosaur footprints confirmed, we confirmed the Smith site, and then there's my site. Next slide. So, I don't know if you remember this in the newspapers. This was in November 21st, 2011. I love the title. It was by, what was his name? Henry Green. Henry Green was a really good writer. Remember him?
I remember him.
He used to write for the RJ. Yeah. Dinosaurs hike Red Rock Canyon. And there's my footprint. So this is the growlator, tridactyl, 3-toed, bipedal, 2-footed, tridactyl, 3-toed, theropod, a meat-eating dinosaur about the size of a large dog, about this big. Now, remember Jurassic Park? I didn't see the last. I don't think is the new one out yet? Is the new?
I think that's
coming.
it's coming.
But the last one, they were only this big, and they were chasing those kids, and the kids were hiding in the. Man, it was really scary. I mean, the little kids must have been terrified. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if one of them came, you could probably handle it like a wild dog. But if they ganged up on you, I don't know. Next one. So this is it. This is what I was telling you about near Pine Creek, found by Cindy Kalsick. This is a big block of rock the size of a bus. It fell off the cliff. You see the tracks? You see the track? This is the dinosaur trackway. And right alongside it, you can't see it, is the proto-mammal. Next slide. So there it is, this is a close-up. So this is the grallator tracks, it's a dinosaur footprint, you see it? Tried that, and guess what? And these are the early mammal tracks. These are the early mammal tracks, right alongside it. It's so cool. But guess what? The BLM doesn't want anybody going there because they're afraid that some idiots will go and...
Yeah.
Already somebody did it.
Yeah.
Somebody put plaster of Paris in one of the best footprints to make a cast, and he ruined the track. So people are idiots, you know, and so I can understand. And this happens. This is a big problem in the national parks and state parks and everywhere. What to do? You have a feature, you want the public to see it and enjoy it, but then you have to worry about vandalism. You know, this is the world we live in.
You close it off.
What?
Close it off.
This is wilderness. You can't
Yeah.
build anything there or anything. It's in the wilderness. Possible dinosaur footprint in sandstone at Spring Mountain Ranch. See?
Wow.
Kind of looks like a print, and maybe here, and it's in a big block of rock. It's not in situ. It's been displaced. It's a big boulder, and I saw it, and I took a picture of it, and then that was before GPS, before I had GPS on the phone, and I couldn't find it again when I went back. But it's possible that there's a dinosaur footprint in Spring Mountain Ranch.
It's the shade that made it stand out.
Huh?
It's the shade.
The
that made
shading,
it stand out.
yeah. In order to find dinosaur footprints or any footprints, any prints, you got to go low light. Low light. It's got to be early in the morning or in the evening. So dinosaurs don't give up their secrets. I want to tell you what happened on the expedition to find those dinosaurs. Remember the one that I found and so on. So by the time we, looked at the one that I found, and then Smith's site. Remember the Smith site that we took pictures of? It was already mid-morning August, and we were out in the field in the sun. And so we decided, okay, we better get out of here. It's getting really hot. But in order to get back, the way we went up and then we went down to the spot. It just looked too intimidating to go back up, so we thought we would go down. We'll just go down. Oh, before I say that, let me say this. So when I got to the Smith site, so oh man, there it is, there's the fossil. And I start taking pictures of backing up. And Gary's sitting there, and he says, "Nick, you're getting me nervous." I turned around, I was 3 feet from the edge. I swear to God, if he hadn't told me that, I wouldn't be here now. That same year, somebody in the Audubon Society was chasing a bird with his binocular, and he went over. He was killed.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
It's really dangerous on cliffs, especially when you see something exciting. So then the phone rings, and it's Gary Smith's wife, and she says her car won't start, and she has to get to work. So Lynn Nicholson, who's younger than Gary and I, and he said, "Okay, I'll run back, and I'll get the car, and I'll help her out, take her to work." I said, "I think we should stay together. I don't think this is a good idea for you to..." And he didn't listen. So he took off. So meanwhile, we had to make a decision. Do we go back up the way we came, and then go down, or do we just try to go down from here instead of doing that upward portion? We decided to try to go down. But it was really hot, and there was hardly any shade. Every time we saw a bush, we would stop under the bush. I had water, but the water was warm, and my body temperature was really getting high. I was getting like really woozy. Okay, anyway, we finally made it down to the bottom, and Gary was kind of holding me up, and I was holding him up, and we made it over to the Calico Basin, where the picnic areas by Red Spring, and we saw emergency vehicles, metro emergency vehicles there. So we figured somebody saw us, walking like this, And so we walked over, and one of the, what do you call it?
EMS,
Huh?
EMS,
Sorry?
the EMS, emergency.
Yeah, emergency management.
Yeah.
One of those guys said, "Which one of you guys has a broken foot?" None of us have a broken foot. So they gave us these cold compresses. You ever see these things? It's like
Yeah.
you hit it and it turns to ice.
Yeah.
And you put it on your neck, and our temperature went down, and we were okay. They work really great. And so the guy with the broken foot had to be Lynn, who went off on his own.
No.
So then Gary gets a phone call, and he's talking to his wife. "Oh, Lynn has been rescued." So he tells these guys, "Lynn has been rescued." And they're like, "How could he have been rescued, And then we see a helicopter, and what his wife said was that he said he was going to be rescued. Fortunately, he broke his ankle jumping from one rock to another. Fortunately, there were some hikers that came along that had a cell phone, and they were able to call to get him out of there. So a helicopter came in and pulled him out. So he and me almost went off the cliff, and dinosaurs don't give up their secrets easily. Next slide.
It's a memorable experience.
So just a couple more subjects. The Keystone thrust fault system. There's vertical faults, and then there's the Keystone thrust fault system. We already talked about it quite a bit. Next slide. And the origin of, right now, if you go to California, the San Andreas Fault, but it's moving laterally. The San Andreas Fault is moving, it's not subducting. The oceanic plate is not subducting under the continental plate. It's moving laterally, so you don't have volcanoes or anything. But way back during the Mesozoic era, 65 million years ago, it was subducting under, and you had friction, and you had volcanoes in Southern California, and you had compression. You had compression, which caused the thrust belt, and that's why the rocks were thrust over. And only about, a few inches a year, but a few inches a year for a few million years, it can go, 40 miles or so. Next slide. So there it is again. So this is the Keystone thrust fault with Cambrian limestone pushed on top of the sandstone. Next slide. And this is a geological map, which is in the book. And the pink is the Cambrian, and the red is the sandstone, and it's sitting on top of it. Next slide. And this is there it is up there. And we'll see it. Every time you see it now, you'll remember that's Cambrian rock. That's 550 million years old. Okay, and this is on the east side of the White Rock Loop in the NCA. And notice how the formations are bent up like that, because the limestone was over the top of it, and it like this, it just pushed the rock up. Can you imagine the rocks bending like that? Just bent like that. That's what happens. Here's a cross section to show. So the limestone was over the top of it, bending the rocks up. So finally, the mystery of the missing volcanic deposits in Spring Mountain Ranch. Next slide. Let me just read you this. This is from an article. John Marlzoff is very well known at the time. I think he's retired now. And I'll try to read this here. We will walk up the road, past the reservoir, and to the base of 2 tons of the Aztec. Dark and purple cobbles of volcanic rocks, some banded, supported by a matrix of volcanic clasts. All the stuff he's describing, he shows pictures of it. Flow banded volcanic boulders. So all the stuff we go out there. Gene Smith, he's a volcanologist. Roland, he's a great geologist. Me, John Peck, Howard Larson, a whole bunch of us. We could not find it. We went several we could not find this thing. So it's still a mystery as to where this is. Okay, next slide. So, let's go looking for the dinosaur footprint and the volcanics this fall. And let's go see the geological formations in the field now, if you want to go.